will be killed also," he said. "And you, Saul, will also die." Saul was terrified and threw himself at the Spirit's feet. When he looked up, the Spirit had gone. And it all came to pass, the defeat, the massacre, the killing of Saul's sons, Jonathan and 2 of his brothers. Jonathan, the great friend of David. And lastly, the death of Saul himself, who, wounded and afraid of capture, had himself killed with his own sword. When the news was brought to David, he wept. He felt again that he was part of a huge design, how God had arranged that he would have no part in the battle, no part in the death of the king he was to replace, the king who had loved him and hated him, who had honored him and degraded him, who had been at first a great king, then mad, now dead. David, great soldier and leader, knew that his own exile would soon end, but for Saul and for Jonathan he wept. All his life, a musician and poet, David made a great lament, beginning sadly, "The beauty of Israel is slain upon thy high places. How are the mighty fallen." After the death of King Saul, David did not by any means become the new king right away. No, God, who had chosen David as the next king of Israel, was going to make quite sure first that Israel would appreciate a good king when they got one. So David first became king of only part of Israel. He became king of Judah, the southern part, where the tribe of Judah lived, to which tribe he belonged by birth. He lived in Hebron as king of Judah for over 7 years. During that time, his own house became strong, and the house of Saul, the royal house of Israel, became weak. The son of Saul, who took over the throne of Israel, was not very good at it, and had a very divided country, remember. But his commander-in-chief was a sensible man called Abner, and he it was who finally brought the civil war to an end, and united all the tribes under one king, David. Another thing he did was to restore David's first wife to him, Michal, Saul's daughter. Mind you, when she came back, David had a few other wives, as was the way then. Multiply, God had said, and a fair-sized family. But she was made very welcome. So, Israel was now united, and David, more experienced now in kingship, took over and made Jerusalem his capital. The years of tribal war seemed now at an end. One of the saddest of the last incidents was the ill-judged murder by one of David's men of Abner, who had done so much. David, a wise man, made the funeral a great lesson in the stupidity of war and strife. He also punished those who murdered Saul's son, who had been king. Then David decided to bring the Ark of God, the scrolls and tablets of the laws and commandments, to Jerusalem. For 20 years or more, the ark had been looked after in a small village not far from Jerusalem, and David made it a great day of joy, a great feast. The people danced and sang, and none more than David. And Michal, his wife, who hadn't been too happy about all the other wives and children, was rather sour about David's dancing and singing in the streets till all hours. "So vulgar," she said. "I am a king's daughter, and your prancing, I assure you, is not very kingly." David pointed out, without anger, that he was not trying to be kingly. He was paying homage to God's word. "God," he said, "who chose me above your father." God listened and decided that perhaps Michal should remain childless, and she did. The ark stood, as always, since the time of Moses, in a decorated and beautiful sort of tent. And David, who lived in a handsome palace of stone and cedar and gold and silver, was bothered by this. He felt that the ark should have a palace too, a great temple, a house to live in. He spoke of this to a prophet called Nathan, an elderly and respected man. The next day, Nathan went to David with words given to him by God in a dream. God said, "He understands your feelings, said Nathan. But the tent will do for the time being. Certainly a great temple will be built for the ark, but by your son, not by you." "Which son?" said David. "I've got lots." "God didn't say," said Nathan, "although I rather gathered he isn't born yet. He will be wise and a credit to you. If you like," said Nathan, "you can start gathering building materials, but don't start work." David listened, prayed his thanks to God, and started gathering. Another thing he did round about this time was rather fine, bearing in mind he was a rather busy king. He found out that Saul's son, Jonathan, his own great friend, had left a child, a boy in his teens, with crippled feet. The boy lived far off with an old servant. David had them both brought to Jerusalem and to live in the palace. "Your father was like a brother to me," he told the boy, "and you shall be like my son." Very human man, David. A man of principle, a brave man, a man blessed by God, and indeed chosen by God, as we've heard. But a human man, and subject, as we shall hear, to human weakness. Once, when I was young and at home, we were talking of palaces and riches and kings, and my father said, yes, but bear in mind that a king is also a man who sits in a more fancy chair. It is so true. And the more like men that kings behave, the more we remember them. Kings have burnt the cakes and tried to stop the tide coming in, and abdicated for love, and have been fools and gamblers and great sinners. And King David was also a great sinner, not regularly, just once, but a real big sin. He was punished by God and forgiven. Poor King David, a man in a fancy chair. The fancy chair was on the flat roof of his palace. David had been king of Israel for some time now, and he loved to sit in the evening and look out over the hills and skyline of Jerusalem. He was by himself. Earlier that day, the prophet Nathan had come to lunch, and they talked about things in general, and David had been pleased at Nathan's approval of his careful leadership of the nation. The people loved him, and Israel was united as never before. The Ammonites were the enemy now, and many battles took place. Indeed, there was one going on now, but in general, things were going well. David got to his feet and stretched. Joab, his commander-in-chief, could handle this battle, he thought. Oh, capable fellow, Joab. David strolled to the handsome balustrade of the roof and looked down. And that was it. In a small roof garden of the house next door, glowing in the pink light of the evening sun, a beautiful woman was rising gracefully from a white marble bath. Now, David was not a boy, middle 40s, and not a fool. He was married to a number of wives and had, as I told you, a fair-sized family, but it was bonnet over the windmill. He was a very handsome and virile man, and the lady got carried away too. Her name was Bathsheba, and her husband was an officer in David's army and away at war. Convenient. But quite soon she was pregnant, and it was months since she'd seen her husband. David had him sent home on leave for a few days, but the gallant officer had forsworn all women till the battle was won. He wouldn't go near his wife. David tried everything. Gave him presents, got him drunk. They had the dancing girls in, sexy music. Nothing. The officer went back to war. And then the whole thing went really bad. David told Joab to put the officer in the sort of danger that would kill him. And it did. Bathsheba mourned for her husband and then went and lived in David's house, and he married her. Weeks passed, and it was nearly time for her baby to be born. Then Nathan, the prophet, went to David. No approval this time. No, a strange-faced Nathan with an odd question. "Ponder," he said. "A rich man with many sheep, who steals the only sheep of a poor man for pleasure's sake. Does he sin?" "He most certainly does," said David, "and shall be punished for it. Who is the man?" "You are the man," said Nathan, "and you are to be punished by God in a number of ways." Then Nathan left, and David prayed for forgiveness. And when the baby was born weak and sickly, he prayed for its life. But the baby died, and Bathsheba wept. She was not a bad woman any more than David was bad. Such things happen. But there are rules called commandments given to Moses by God. They hadn't been out all that long, and God wanted them obeyed, especially by the man he had chosen to be an example to others. David, in his comforting of Bathsheba, gave and found great love in her. And when she again told him she was going to have a child, he prayed differently for her, that she should have joy. And God was pleased and sent a message again through Nathan the prophet. "It will be a son," said Nathan, "and he will be king after you, and he will be gentle and have great wisdom. His name will be Solomon, which means peaceful, and God will be his friend." Nathan paused. "I must tell you, however, that your punishment is not complete," he said. "As one son shall bring you joy, so is another to give you grief, and God will raise up evil against you out of your own house." As the years passed, and David and Bathsheba enjoyed the growing up of their son Solomon, old Nathan's words were almost forgotten. Then the thing began. Now, David, remember, had a number of other wives, all of whom he'd met and married before Bathsheba, and by them he'd had quite a large family. His firstborn was a young man called Amnon, who fell in love with his half-sister called Tamar. He behaved very badly, and her brother, called Absalom, swore revenge and waited his chance. He waited 2 years and then killed Amnon and fled. King David, who loved his fine family and handsome sons, grieved terribly. He wept both for the death of Amnon and for the loss of Absalom, the most handsome of them all. David's commander-in-chief and old friend, called Joab, saw that the king's heart was not really in the banishment of Absalom, and he found a way for David to forgive and Absalom to return. But after his sons returned to Jerusalem, for 2 full years David wouldn't see him, and this set up in Absalom, already an arrogant and ambitious young man, a great bitterness. He began to plot and scheme to win the affection of the people. It wasn't hard. He was the king's son, in line for the throne, well known, one of the best-looking men in all Israel. He created a whole network of spies and supporters, and the conspiracy grew strong and dangerous. 4 years passed by, and David, who was no fool, put some 2s and 2s together and decided to abdicate. And he and his family and household left Jerusalem, and Absalom moved in. But it was not all that simple. It never is. Not everyone wanted a new king, and David was much loved. And as he walked into exile, many thousands decided to walk by his side. David now saw that Israel was divided and vulnerable. A country at war with itself is anybody's prey, and Israel had no lack of enemies, surrounded by them, like today. So David mustered the thousands with him into an army, and as so often in the past, Joab and his brother Abishai commanded them. Soon all the espionage and counter-espionage and preparation for the big showdown began, though David gave strict orders that Absalom was on no account to be killed. Not that Absalom had any such principles. He had the throne, and many spies, and a huge force of trained men, and no feelings at all about killing his father. He tried a number of times, but David